It's what you hearing. It's what you hearing. Listen. It's what you hearing. Listen. It's what you hearing. Listen. X gon' give it to you. What? Wait for you to get it on your own. X gon' deliver to you. Knock, knock. Open up the door. It's real. With the non-stop.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Fantasy Football X Factor podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Lamarco. Today we'll be diving into the ESPN.com fades and values. I'll be letting you know who to fade on, let them fall a round or two, and who to attack in each round. I'll be breaking it out by position, so we'll go round by round for running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, etc. Just to start off right off the bat, we're going to talk about quarterbacks. So guys, listen, my draft philosophy is very simple. You wait on quarterback. Listen, everybody's doing it this year. It's the hot button thing, but really, to be honest with you, it makes a lot of sense. There's just so much depth and talent at the position, especially if it's a one-off position, meaning you only start one quarterback in your league. So I think it's very important, guys, just if you wait on a quarterback, I would wait until double-digit rounds. I think around 10, 11, you could take a peek and see who's available. If guys like Phillip Rivers, for example, fall to the 12th round, he's a snipe for me. You could take him maybe around the 11th as well because I love his week one matchup. Obviously, I'm going to be trying to be streaming quarterbacks throughout the season. I'll stick with you guys. We'll talk about streamers. We'll try to make sure we can stream quarterbacks every week of the season. But more importantly, if the right value falls, so for example, in my Yahoo draft over the weekend, I got Andrew Luck in the 12th. So, things like this happen. So just stay patient, and quarterbacks do fall and slip through the cracks. So my advice to you is just wait. So let's dive right into it, guys. So round one, I'll be doing off my tiered rankings. If you guys are interested in seeing my tiers, my running back, tight end, and wide receiver tiers, DM me. Maybe we could work something out about getting those to you. But for now, we're going to be talking about the RBs. So right off the bat, it's hard. I'm not going to call anybody a bust because, to be honest with you, these guys are all studs. It's very hard to predict injuries, but for the most part, these guys will be, there's going to be a handful who don't finish as the RB1 or first round pick. So there's 8 running backs going in the first round. Only one I fade. So on ESPN.com, Dalvin Cook right now is going the 12th overall player. You got to fade him. I'm sorry. Listen, if you listen to my Vikings podcast, I talk about John DeFilippo and his involvement in the run game. So John DeFilippo has a history of using multiple backs. He comes from an offense in Philadelphia that did use multiple backs as well, but even his version of the West Coast offense that he ran when he was in Cleveland used multiple backs. So I want to make sure you guys understand that right now he's coming back from injury. So make sure Latavius Murray is going to have a role in this offense. He's not a true bell cow. He should not be going ahead of Leonard Fournette, Melvin Gordon, Christian McCaffrey, even Devonta Freeman. So, these are guys that I would take over him. That goes to the second round. Right off the bat is Leonard Fournette and Melvin Gordon, guys. These are round one values for me. I actually have them ranked higher than Alvin Kamara. I have them right after Saquon Barkley. The reason for that is because I truly believe that Leonard Fournette is going to take the next step in the passing game as well. He got over 40 targets in 13 games last season. He had over 30 receptions in 13 games. He can easily touch the 50, especially with the loss of Marquise Lee. It's going to be a lot on the receiving core, but also I think it involves Leonard Fournette getting more passes in the passing game. He's a true bell cow. He's an elite talent. He needs to be drafted in the top 8 picks, in my opinion. The other guy is Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon, guys, same exact scenario with Hunter Henry going down. I'm telling you right now, Melvin Gordon, I saw it in the preseason. I put it in my observations in my yesterday's podcast, my takeaways from week 3 preseason. They're throwing the backs a lot. Austin Eckler was involved heavily. Behind Keenan Allen, there's a lot of uncertainty. Even Mike Williams is getting all the hype. Tyrell Williams has a history, in 2016 of having a good season. But, these targets are up for grabs. And the Earhart-Perkins offense that Ken Whisenhunt runs allows running backs to become number 2 options in the passing game. So Melvin Gordon, to me, needs to be drafted in the first round before even Alvin Kamara, Kareem Hunt, and Dalvin Cook. In the third round, guys, so we're just I'll touch on the other guys in the second round. It's Christian McCaffrey, Devonta Freeman, and LaShawn McCoy. So, my thing is this. In the second round right now, I would consider LaShawn McCoy to fade. Obviously, he's going 23rd overall, 13th running back. The reason why I say that, though, is because people do draft him later. I got LaShawn McCoy in my one draft in the 5th round. It just means this is how people view him right now. Listen, I think you can easily get him around later. So you can go up, move up in the draft, pick a guy like Joe Mixon, Jordan Howard, even a wide receivers like Doug Baldwin, T.Y. Hilton, etc., and still get LaShawn McCoy later in the 3rd, probably the 4th. So I fade him just because of the fact that I feel like you can get him later in drafts. But I still view LaShawn McCoy, if you tune into my Bills podcast, I talk a little bit about Brian DeBall and his impact and what he did for Peyton Hillis, Jamal Charles, etc. in the running game. So I still think Rashawn McCoy could be a top 15 back this year. Round 3 right now today, there's only 3 running backs going in round 3 according to ESPN.com. It's Jerick McKinnon, Joe Mixon, and Jordan Howard. And if I need to go into Jordan Howard, I feel like at this point, guys, please go back to my Bears podcast. I love Jordan Howard. He, to me, is a borderline 1-2 first or second round pick. He needs to be drafted. I actually have Jordan Howard ranked my tier 3 of running backs with Christian McCaffrey and Kareem Hunt. That's how highly I think of Jordan Howard this season. He needs to be drafted in the second round. The other guy is Joe Mixon. So Joe Mixon to me is a value in the third. Right now he's going as the RB15, 26 overall. I view that, he's going in a great spot. I think I would take him as in the 2-3 turn. I'm a little hesitant because of the fact they haven't looked great running the football in the preseason, but I expect Bill Lazor's spread offense to start humming. And if you listen to my Bengals podcast, I talk about Joe Mixon and why Bill Lazor's spread offense is going to change this year. Last year he took over for Ken Zampese in the West Coast. This year they're implementing the spread under Bill Lazor. In the 4th round, guys, there's a bunch of guys going in the 4th. So we have Kenyon Drake, Royce Freeman, Derrick Henry, Alex Collins, and Jay Ajayi. So in the 4th round, I have 2 fades. I have Derrick Henry and Jay Ajayi. So in my previous Titans podcast, I did talk about Derrick Henry. If he falls to the 4th, I just think the fact I call him a fade is because I'd rather have other guys before Derrick Henry. And right now going behind him, guys that I like are Marshawn Lynch. And Marshawn Lynch going a whole round behind him. Carlos Hyde, for example, is going in the 7th round on ESPN.com rankings. These are guys that I actually have ranked higher than Derrick Henry. So that's just something to keep in mind. I actually have him in a tier below with Alex Collins. So Derrick Henry and Alex Collins and Jay Ajayi are 3 fades in the 4th round for me because I'd rather have. So Kenyon Drake to me is the great value in the 4th. I talked about him a lot in my Dolphins podcast. And, the Erhardt-Perkins offense that Adam Gase runs gives you the ability to use running backs more in the passing game than you see in other schemes. And Drake has the talent. Adam Gase came out today. Listen, it's all coach speak, but, he should be able to get 20 touches a game in this offense. He's a stud, too. He can pass block. He can run. He can receive. I'm taking him. Him and Royce Freeman, great values in the 4th. I like them both. But Drake's my guy in the 4th round. I like him as the value in the 5th round, guys. It's still a big boatload of guys. We have Marshawn Lynch, we have Deion Lewis, Lamar Miller, Mark Ingram, and Duke Johnson. So in this round, right off the bat, my value is Marshawn Lynch, guys. Marshawn Lynch is actually in my tier with. I have him as high with Kenyon Drake, Freeman. I have him with LaShawn McCoy in one tier. That guy, Marshawn Lynch. So this is kind of like an emotional pick for me. Marshawn Lynch, he came back just to play in Oakland. He said he would come out of retirement for one team, his hometown team. This is the last year they're in Oakland, L.A., Oakland area, before they go to Las Vegas. He's going to want to go out with a bang. I think he's going to get the shot. I think he's going to look great. Last 8 games of the season, he was an RB1. So go get Marshawn Lynch in the 5th round. He's a great value. I would take him in the 4th as well. Duke Johnson's my only fade. Here's why. Listen, if you guys listen to my Browns podcast, I talk about Todd Haley and how he runs the Erhardt-Perkins offense. This is important because, guys, in the Erhardt-Perkins offense, they use bell cows. Todd Haley, since 2007, has had 8 RB1s in his offense. Carlos Hyde's going to be that RB1. The fact that Duke Johnson right now on ESPN standard, their scoring system, they use PPR rankings, so they have Duke Johnson going higher. I still think that's insanity, guys. Please take Carlos Hyde before Duke Johnson. Duke Johnson's a full-on fade for me. He falls a couple rounds, in my view. He should be going probably closer to the handcuff range. I expect him to be a handcuff in this offense. In the preseason, I tracked their snaps. He got 5 snaps to Carlos Hyde's 22 in the preseason game dress rehearsal. And then after Carlos Hyde was done for the day, they played Duke Johnson. So in round 6, we have Rex Burkhead, Isaiah Crowell, and Tevin Coleman. I like Rex Burkhead in the 6th. If you can get him, great. He's our 5th round talent for me. Probably actually, now looking at my rankings, I would probably say Rex Burkhead in the early 5th over those guys right after Marshawn Lynch. And then Isaiah Crowell's the fade in the 6th round. So Isaiah Crowell, to me, he right now is actually going to be running behind Powell. So in the 6th round, he's not the starting running back. Do not take him as the starting running back for the Jets. Plus, he shouldn't even be going in the 6th round anyway. He's a full fade for me. Right now, he's going as the RB28 on ESPN.com. You could take him completely out of the 6th round, fade him all the way into the double-digit rounds. I would consider Powell before I would take Isaiah Crowell. In the 7th, guys, we have 2 running backs. We have Chris Thompson and Carlos Hyde. Chris Thompson for me right now, he's a fade for me in the 7th, only because of guys that I like better than him in the later rounds. For example, Carlos Hyde, Jamal Williams, for example, should be going ahead of Chris Thompson and in the 7th round. So I would fade him into the later rounds, 8th, 9th, but in a full PPR league, he's going to have the opportunity, especially with Adrian Peterson as their main back now. He's not going to be as involved as Darius Geis, so I think you can take him later, but I would still take Jamal Williams and Carlos Hyde over Chris Thompson. Listen, Carlos Hyde, for me, guys, is a top-tier running back. I have him ranked just outside my top 15, and I think, with Carlos Hyde, he's going to be in a Todd Haley offense, guys. The Earhart-Perkins offense that Todd Haley runs, they feature an RB1. I think Carlos Hyde is going to get all the money, all the carries he can get. So I checked his contract status. He has an out clause after year 1. Basically, he has a 1-year contract with the Browns, and then it's a 2-year option after that. So if he comes out and balls out, they're going to exercise that option. If he doesn't, then he's done. They can cut him, and they can Nick Chubb steps in. This is a showcase year for him. I think they're going to give him all the work he can get. I would take Carlos Hyde in the 5th round. So I would definitely, he's a value for me in the 7th. In the 8th round, Chris Carson, Tyreek Cohen, Kerryon Johnson, Rashard Penny, Ronald Jones, Sony Michel. Those rookie running backs are great values in the 8th, guys. Take them all day in the 8th. Take your shot with one of those guys. You're going to have to wait on them. They're not going to become the bell cows, but in the 8th round now, they're great values. You don't need to worry about waiting so long. The only guy I would take over them is Jamal Williams in the 9th round on ESPN.com. So in the 8th round, my fade is Tariq Cohen. I love for Jordan Howard. Tariq Cohen, I think, is going to be a nice gadget player. He's going to be a better football player than fantasy player. So I think Tariq Cohen, these guys are handcuffs. I don't expect them to be, PPR assets. I'd rather have the guys who are guaranteed carry counts. I'd rather take a flyer on one of these rookies. And then my value in the 8th round of everybody's Kerryon Johnson. I think Amir Abdul, they were showcasing him. I think he might get cut. Even if he doesn't, I think that at some point, someone actually made a great comparison to Kerryon Johnson to Alvin Kamara in the sense of Adrian Peterson comes in. They had Mark Ingram already there. I think that's the exact thing that happens here. But he's a patient player, too. You got to wait. But he's a little bit higher than Rashard Penny, Ronald Jones, and Sony Michel in that category for me because I think he has a chance to become a true workhorse in the offense he's in. Rashard Penny also does, but I think he has a harder, building block with Chris Carson. Ronald Jones, to me, doesn't seem to have the grasp of the offense that you would like to see early on. So Kerryon Johnson's my value pick in the 8th round. In the 9th,